So this is a review for Duck Dodgers, and with me today is my fellow space cadet, my good friend S C MacPeter. Say hi.
All set, your hero ship, sir.
Yeah, see? This is why I get SC on a lot of these reviews. He gives me the respect I deserve. Yes, but no, I kid, of course. And by the way, given that this is going to be such a special review because it's of a short that just about everyone knows, there'll be comments from my other good friends who will hopefully give me the same level of respect. It'll be peppered throughout this review. I thought I'd try something a little bit different this time round.
I told you this planet wasn't big enough for the both of us. Off you go! Jonathan Graves with This Means Podcast. You can follow the Instagram or listen to the regular show over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcasts. I'm always talking Looney Tunes, and I'm happy to be here.
Oh, hello. Didn't see you there. I guess we're all here today to tell you all about the Chuck Jones cartoon that you've seen a million times, but you're still watching a video about. Anyhow, you should totally check me out on my YouTube channel, Blue Genocide, where I make pretty good videos. Just saying.
Well, anything more fun than There Ought to Be a Law?
Yeah, if you guys don't know, that's what I recorded literally just before this one. Anthony always tries to pair stinker with a good cartoon, and Duck Dodgers is, of course, a great cartoon. I know I come off on the channel as a bit of a Jones critic, but this is one of his finer shorts.
Howdy doody, fresh and tooty, folks. This is Eli Copperman. I'm reporting to you live from the Himalayas. No, I kid. In all seriousness, I'm here to share my brief thoughts on Duck Dodgers.
Hello, it's me again, John. And today I'm going to give my thoughts in another of my all-time favorite Warner cartoons, Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century.
So first of all, as mentioned, this is Duck Dodgers, released on the 25th of July 1953. It's the 685th in the series, and it's directed by, who else? Chuck Jones. Yes, I'm going to say this joke once again. I know you're all going to roll your eyes. This is an obscure cartoon. No one's ever seen it. Blah, blah, blah. No, I've done that joke already. You can find this on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 1 DVD set and on the Looney Tunes Platinum Collection Volume 1 Blu-ray or DVD set. It's just about everywhere. It's a very well-known cartoon.
Yeah, it's lost media.
It's lost media, yeah, so no one's ever seen it, of course.
This was arguably the first time that a lot of people in my generation got to see Marvin the Martian, at least, well, that and Devil Hair, because they both appeared on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 1. Granted, Marvin does sound a little different in one of those shorts, but that's neither here nor there.
I'm going to blow up the earth.
So the first time I watched this cartoon was in the Golden Collections ever since I was a kid, and this was another one I watched constantly because I always enjoyed it.
And I can't show it to you on YouTube, though, because it's under copyright. And if I try and upload the full cartoon, it'll just get taken down.
See? Lost media.
Exactly. Yeah, because see, for a lot of people, if it's not online on YouTube, then it's immediately lost media, which is incredibly dumb. But anyway, look, if you're one of the few that haven't seen this one, and believe me, definitely go and see this if you haven't. But in this short, Daffy is Duck Dodgers, and he is tasked with searching for the rare element Illudium Phostex, also known as the shaving cream atom, but the supply is found only on Planet X. So Duck Dodgers, along with his space cadet, head over there to claim Planet X in the name of Earth, but Marvin the Martian shows up and claims the planet in the name of Mars. And you can imagine what would happen next.
There's so much jam-packed into it. Just like in this episode, we're going to have so many people contributing here because it is worthy of that much praise. Obviously, we have physical media. We have the Golden Collection, been collecting the archival collection from Warner Archives. But you turn on Max/HBO Max if you're here in America, and you see what's on the Looney Tune page. And I went to just turn this one on the other day, and instead of Duck Dodgers, in the category of the 1950s shorts, it literally has 1953 shorts leading up to the last one, which is The Return of Duck Dodgers from 1980. And Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century is not on there. So somebody accidentally uploaded the wrong short and put it in the 53 section. I had to laugh, but it's also very sad that currently people cannot see this. It might update by the time this goes online, but like the fact that right now people can't watch this if they have Max is just a travesty. Somebody needs to go in there and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and the irony is...
sort things out.
The irony is that you're laughing more at that happening than the actual sequel short itself, which the less said about that, the better, I think. So trivia, there certainly is a few here which I'll go through. So this is actually the only appearance of Duck Dodgers and his space cadet in the golden age of Looney Tunes, but the idea was then revisited in a sequel decades later by Chuck Jones himself, and there was even a treatment done by Malcolm Maltese, and we'll touch upon it briefly later on. We're not going to go too in-depth into the sequel, and it should be obvious why if you've actually seen it, but it's actually got quite an interesting point here. But after that, it was made into a series in the early 2000s, and if you're going to adapt a Looney Tunes idea into a series, Duck Dodgers is definitely a great idea. Whether you like the series or not, I thought that was a great concept for them to use. Oh, and you can always dust off your Nintendo 64. You can also play a Duck Dodgers video game, which I haven't played, and I actually do have a Nintendo 64 that's close by. Maybe I'll play that after this review.
Sure, why not? Or maybe you can go to that theme park that shows Marvin the Martian, the Third Dimension, which uses the Duck Dodgers concept.
Yeah, which I'm old enough to say that, yeah, I actually did see that. It was at Warner Brothers Movie World, and that's in Queensland, and they've even got a Looney Tunes land there. So if you come to Australia and if you want to go to a Looney Tunes land, well, it exists. So there you are. I was lucky enough to see it. But thankfully, that is available as a special feature on, I think, the Platinum Collection. So it's not like it's lost media. It does exist still. Thank goodness for that.
You have Chuck Jones directing one of the best shorts of all time. I mean, this ranked number 4, I think, out of the greatest animated shorts of all time from Jerry Beck. And it's in a good place.
Although I did mention this in another review, I wonder what would change if they were to revisit that idea today. But it'll be interesting.
With a lot more films accessible and a lot more in circulation, I think that it would be totally different. Although I think that the top 10 would have a lot of the same films.
I think so too. Given that a lot of them are such Chuck Jones classics as this one, Duck 'em Up, and What's Opera Doc, so...
We're at Jones's peak here. This is 1953. There's Duck 'em Up. There's this cartoon. There's Duck, Rabbit, Duck. There's so many great ones from Jones in this period. It's the highlight of his career, and now it's getting even better because this is one of the first Maurice Noble worked on.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the first. That was the second... in the Hunting trilogy. Yeah, it was the second one. Although he did have a hand in either Snafu or Mr. Hook, or one of those. So he actually did work beforehand. So basically he was at Disney, he left once the strike happened, and then he eventually made his way over to the studio where he made a huge impact, as you will no doubt see in the short.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, if I had to narrow it down, I would really say Maurice Noble's designs has such energy behind it. I think this is one of the things that people look at whenever they're leaping into doing sci-fi is the energy that this short has. In just 7 minutes, you're already invested in what is happening because of this spaceship and all of this architecture that's in space.
I think it's a very phenomenal short in every sense of the word.
But we got Marvin the Martian. Certainly not his first appearance, but it is the first time he's paired up with Porky and Daffy, and it's actually the only short where he is not paired with Bugs Bunny, so it was interesting that he was used in this short, but hey, it works. I like it. It's a good idea. The title is based off of Buck Rogers, and that started as a sci-fi action comic strip in 1929, and it became really popular. Various books, radio shows, a movie serial, and even a TV series in 1950. Sadly, only one episode of that survives today, but it was pretty popular, so you can see why Chuck used that title and gave Daffy that name. Now, later on, and this is a very interesting connection that I realized, but in the late 70s, they did a Buck Rogers TV show, of which the first episode they made also into a movie, but in it, a character named Twiki was voiced by Mel Blanc. So we had a very interesting full circle there. So we've gone from Buck Rogers into Duck Dodgers, and then the guy who voiced Duck Dodgers voiced the character in Buck Rogers. Now, try saying that fast 10 times, but yeah, it was just an interesting little thing there.
I never knew that this was based on the whole Buck Rogers things until years later. Like, I thought this was an original concept, but no, it was based on something that had existed for years, but I didn't know at the time.
So how huge of an influence was this short? Well, it influenced a lot of notable filmmakers like Spielberg, but more notably George Lucas, who actually had this short paired with a reissue of Star Wars once that became really popular.
Yeah, not too long after the movie and he got some prestige, he was able to have Warner give him a copy of Duck Dodgers to play. I don't think it played nationwide with the film, but I think at the key theater where it premiered, it was definitely playing with the movie. Someone can correct me on that.
It's really cool that this short has influenced the sci-fi that we still have today. George Lucas was a huge fan of this short when it came out, and he urged Fox, back whenever Fox owned Star Wars, to put it in front of Star Wars. And they didn't have, I guess, the licensing or the rights to do that upon its first release in 77, but they did do it in 79 or 80. I don't remember when the re-release was, but whenever it went back to theaters, they included this short in front of it, which I think is just fantastic.
And the other interesting thing about that is it should also show just how little Warner Brothers thought of Looney Tunes at the time, because if someone else asks, oh, can I have the rights to use this short to play it or whatever? Back then, it's like, yep, no worries. Whereas if you try and do it now, it'd be probably a lot more difficult. You would have to jump through a lot of hurdles, I would think. So it was a different time. But regardless, it was definitely a huge influence on George Lucas, so much so that he convinced Chuck Jones to make a sequel. And the idea was that the sequel was going to be played before the then unnamed Star Wars sequel, which eventually became The Empire Strikes Back, but it missed the deadline. And eventually that sequel ended up premiering within a TV special called Daffy Duck's Thanks for Giving.
Where it became the center focus.
And then after that, it was then re-edited into a short. And we'll just get this out of the way right now because I do want to focus just on the original. The sequel is not that good, and I don't think I'm alone in saying that. But as far as trivia goes, it's definitely something that needed to be mentioned. And I think the biggest irony is that the Duck Dodgers TV show ended up capturing the spirit of the original way better than Jones did when he revisited it.
Even besides Jones, even Maltese, when he wrote his original version that you could see on Cartoon Research, he sort of missed it as well because he had been soiled from working on TV cartoons that a lot of it kind of reads more like Quick Draw McGraw than Daffy Duck.
It seems everyone has wanted to recreate the same magic. Jones tried again in the 80s with Duck Dodgers and the Return to the 24th and a half century, which was like a sequel cartoon, which, while it's not great, it's still okay. And then there is the 2003 TV show of Duck Dodgers, which the whole idea is it's inspired by the original cartoon, and it helped to expand the Looney Tunes universe by introducing some new characters exclusive to the show. And I really, really loved the Duck Dodgers 2003 TV show, since I grew up watching that alongside the original cartoons. And it really shows that the crew obviously was inspired by the original Warner cartoons to replicate the same humor in this TV show. It shows that Duck Dodgers has a great legacy as one of the best Warner cartoons.
Let's get back to the actual cartoon. Let's get to the real Duck Dodgers.
Exactly. This one, I don't think there's anything being matched. So we already know what the rating's going to be at the end. And spoiler alert, it's going to be a perfect score. But why is that? I mean, watching this short, even though I've seen this one countless times, and I mean countless times, it still just boggles the mind just how pitch perfect the whole thing is. It's like all the elements coming together, well, perfectly. Yeah. So for years now, SC have begged me to be on this review because you really wanted to be on this one. And I can't blame you. It's a great short. So what do you like about this cartoon the most? Like, why did you want to do this review so badly?
I really loved Star Wars as a kid. And I did watch Duck Dodgers a few times before watching the Star Wars movies when I was a kid. And I just loved it. Besides the fact that it's very funny, it's Maltese and Jones at the peak of their collaboration. And it's before the studio shuts down. The studio was shut down when this was released, mind you, but this was before that. It's just a pitch perfect combination of everything coming together. And besides the fact that it's just a really funny cartoon, the atmosphere is pitch perfect, from sound design, the layout, the color, everything just blew me. It blew my mind when I saw it when I was very young, and it still does today. This was my first time watching it quite some time before we started recording. And man, this is a fantastic cartoon. It is exceptional. And to clarify, I begged for this because I've been watching so many McKimsons to realize that I just want to do one of the A-Class Jones cartoons.
Well, you've earned it. You've climbed the ranks, and now you've earned the right to I kid, of course.
From Bars and Stripes Forever to Duck Dodgers.
You've certainly climbed that ladder, that's for sure. But if you do wrong by me, I'll make you do a buddy short, you know. Them's the breaks, you know. But rewatching this short let's not kid ourselves. It's considered to be one of the most overplayed cartoons, but it's overplayed for a reason because it's that good.
I mean, I can revisit this short and always find something new, something to laugh at, something that makes me just overjoyed with animation and the art of storytelling along with comedy. You have Daffy and Porky and Marvin the Martian. I mean, how can you not love this short?
I think that Jones is really good when he's playing off of Daffy, because I find that a lot of my favorite Chuck Jones cartoons are definitely his interpretation of Daffy as like the greedy coward who wants to maybe be the Bugs Bunny type but just can't. I definitely prefer the Clampett or Avery crazy Daffy, but there are times where I really do appreciate the Jones take on the character. I would also say that another really good element of this cartoon is taking what was popular at the time, which was the science fiction alien invaders gimmick, or like the Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, which were really popular at the time, and playing with that genre and doing something with it. And Jones is really good at doing these kind of cartoons, and he did it a lot with Daffy and Porky. And I really think that this is one of the better takes on the format. I really like Drip Along Daffy, obviously, but I think this one has definitely solidified itself as one of the greatest buddy cartoons the Looney Tunes studio ever did.
So better Buddy cartoon than Buddy itself, yeah?
Yes.
Well, except Buddy's Bearcats, we all know that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Buddy's Bearcats. It's such a weird cartoon to be so great in the middle of mediocrity, but they just really not nailed it out of the park with that one.
They do a really good job of bringing you into the world, regardless if they were made on A budgets or B budgets or even Z budgets, you know? So beyond that, I think it's really cool that they were able to squeeze so many sci-fi references and music and sound effects, in addition to visuals, in just one cartoon.
The gags, they're so memorable. From the Quasic disintegration gag, which I really find it funny, to the one where Daffy's trying to synchronize into Marvin's ship, and suddenly Marvin appears and shoots Daffy through the TV.
And some of the things in rewatching this short as I get older didn't exactly pop out to me when I was a kid. When I was a kid, of course, there was all the funny little gags. But one thing that stood out for me this time around is that it could be seen as a Cold War allegory, particularly in the last third, the whole mutually assured destruction idea, where if each side has weapons that no one will dare attack the other because the other will then just retaliate and then you're both destroyed. And they literally do that at the very end between Earth and Mars. So I don't know if that was intentional when they were writing this. I think it was just a funny gag and that was it. But man, you could definitely read that.
Knowing Jones's scholarly nature, and of course Maltese doing a lot of very literate or very smart things for cartoons, it is very possible, especially the fact that often in American culture this time, when doing Cold War parodies, they would replace Russians with aliens. And knowing Jones's more libertarian nature, he probably was thinking of mutually assured destruction. And you know what? If he was trying to parody that with this, with the final third, he got it very well. He definitely nailed it perfectly how it plays.
Yeah, because just to put this into context, this was released in 53. It would have been made in 52, of course. But at the time, the Cold War was, well, I don't want to say heating up because it's kind of weird, isn't it? Because it's a Cold War. But anyway.
Yeah.
But by this point, you got the Korean War. You've got the Red Scare. So China had been taken over by the Communist Party in 49.
You had Hollywood Red Scares.
Yeah, the whole MacArthur hearings.
I wouldn't put it past Chuck Jones because he's very methodical with the stories he tells, and he goes out of his way to make a point, whether it being with the dot and the line and that being about racism, or if it's Horton Hears a Who and it's related to the Theodore Geisel metaphors, and like they were really good friends. So like all of his work, I think, is layered in that way.
I mean, Maltese wrote it as well, so maybe he was thinking about these things as well, or maybe he didn't think of it and Chuck Jones did. It works anyway, regardless of whether it was intentional or not, I think.
Anytime that there's a Michael Maltese story credit, I always assume Chuck Jones is right there with him, helping him along the way with visual gags and like the story they want to tell together.
Yeah, so this would have been very, very timely, and it's kind of timely today without going any further into that point. But anyway, and I just realized, wait a minute, Marvin the Martian. Mars is a red planet. Communists in Russia were considered the Reds. It all fits.
Connecting dots.
Yes, just like Duck Dodgers did when he tried to plot a course to Planet X, charting. Like, that was my brain just then, just going all the way around, and it was right there. It was so obvious. Right in the middle. I mentioned before how everything comes together just so pitch perfectly, but I think what strikes people the most when this cartoon opens are the Maurice Noble layouts, which by extension Philip Degard does the actual background paintings. Man, they're so striking.
Yeah, this is a theatrical cartoon. When you look at it, there's big design and you have the characters very small. This is something that you need to see on a big screen to really capture. You don't get this sort of design when looking on television or our computer screens. You need a big screen to really get how this would have felt in 53, because beyond the fact that they're also big and playing with size that much, it also just captures the feeling of space really well, that it's very empty, and whenever there's something in it, there's something very large. You get the great feeling. And beyond that, we had discussed Maurice Noble, that this is one of his first ones. This is his 7th cartoon as layout artist. He's making a big impact on the design of these cartoons, and you could tell this was really a tour de force for him. This was his first really big one, in my opinion, where we talked in Wild Overview that he's really beginning to stylize Paris, because that was, I think, one of his first Pepes, if not his first. But here, he does space just so fantastically that it's no wonder that people like George Lucas and Spielberg would have been inspired, because it just has so much great design.
Exactly. And here's the thing, people also need to understand that at that time, when they were trying to do live action space movies, they were rather limited because there was no CGI, none of that stuff. And they could only get away with things like stop motion, hopefully good makeup and costume and creature effects, which some of it was pretty good, but then some of it was just truly awful. But even then, you could tell they're fake. Sadly, that's just how it is. Whereas these days, you can use CGI and make these grand visions. If you look at the latest Dune movie, that would have been impossible back in the 50s to do something like that. So in the short like this, animation has a big advantage. Your imagination is limitless. You can do whatever.
Of course, you don't really have the budget to do the most elaborate character designs, but the layouts are just beautiful. The backgrounds are exceptional in this cartoon. I think the fact that you can't do too many detailed designs is why they made Daffy Porky, the Commander, IQ High, look like they're wearing Halloween costumes.
Yes, but animation at this point had the big advantage of you could put whatever you wanted. Obviously, they were also constrained by their own budgets and such, but still, you could do stuff that live action could not do at that time. But I reckon we can take a look at this short from start to finish. What do you say?
I'm with you. Your heroship, sir.
Yes, thank you once again. And you can stroke my ego any way you want. I don't mind.
This is obviously among the greatest Warner cartoons. So memorable. Once again, another quotable cartoon with great animation, which really shows the great work of Jones' team.
And speaking of the Chuck Jones team, my good friend Devin Baxter, he sadly couldn't make this jam session. However, he has kindly and graciously given me an animated breakdown, so I'll be peppering the information all throughout this review. But one thing I just wanted to point out is you've got 3 credited animators, so you have Lloyd Vaughn, Ken Harris, and Ben Washam. He notes that Abe Levitot and Richard Thompson might have done some footage on this cartoon without credit. I love that name, though, of the commander, Dr. IQ High. You got those silly little moments that's just peppered throughout this short as well. You kind of roll your eyes, but in a good way. It's hilarious.
Oh, yes. I mean, there's so much going on and in such a short amount of time that, again, we're being thrust into it. But with the incredibly unique designs of the characters, you know that Duck Dodgers is important, that this IQ guy is important, and the mission is of the utmost importance. And then you're met with the wonderful comedic relief in the Space Cadet, Porky.
That giant eyeball always gets me. I guess Duck Dodgers predicted the future somewhat in how everything is closely monitored. Not as literal eyeballs, but kind of eyeballs in a different way.
I want to add that I love the fact that it's the future. Like, it's so far ahead in the future. It's the 24th and a half century.
Well, yeah, it just added to the mystery of what are we getting ourselves into here? Because this is a world that is really separated from Looney Tunes and the classic shorts that we know, and we're being taken to an all-new location, and immediately you're met with things that are really abstract, really abnormal, but I think that just adds to the complexity of this, and it gives it value.
I think with the way technology is going, everyone will probably soon have giant eyeballs in front of their houses, I reckon.
I think we already do. I think we just put it inside technology. So those doorbells that also have cameras, that's the same.
So we're kind of in this future already with technology.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice little way to insert a subtle joke while setting up the opening, because with that and just the IQ High name that isn't said out loud but just there, you get the impression that they're doing story, which, I mean, most of the Warner cartoons are just setups for gags in a way.
Yeah.
But this one, it really has a lot going on. Like, there is an unusual amount of story for a Warner cartoon.
Exactly. And look, we're impressed by the exterior designs of this initial planet that we're on, which is, Earth in the future, with buildings that are 17,000 floors high. But anyway, as we see in the beginning. But even the interior designs, they're just as grand as the outside. It's noticeable, but it doesn't overpower the character animations. That's what makes it work so well. Like in the initial map screen that Dr. IQ High shows off to Daffy saying, you need to go in this uncharted area. It's blended seamlessly. It's fantastic.
Yeah, especially the great way of contrast is that when it opens, the backgrounds are very big and open. You don't really have too much close-up to characters. They're very far away. But when we get inside, we're very close to characters. But the rooms are, of course, made very, very big. There isn't a lot of furniture besides the machine. You get the impression they're in this big room, which helps. And despite the fact that we're also still very close to the characters.
And I like how the whole premise is made out to be a really big deal, that they need the shaving cream atom. Like, it's such a trivial little thing that as an adult, more so than as a kid, watching that, realizing this is just absurd. Like, why a shaving cream atom? It's just ridiculous.
Well, I need it.
Well, so do I.
I need my shave to last longer.
Same here. I hate shaving. But anyway, maybe I'll go out and get some shaving cream atoms to help out with that.
I have sent for you, Dodgers, because we are facing a crisis. The world supply of aluminum Fosdex, the shaving cream atom, is alarmingly low.
So we then see a bit where the commander's like,
Can you do it, Dodgers?
and that's more or less a parody of what a lot of radio shows would have of pulp heroes, sci-fi heroes, that sort of thing, where because you can't see anything and it's on the radio, they would have to pretty much describe everything. It's like, can the Lone Stranger do it? And so on.
I really like the detail when he's saying it, because he isn't doing a lot of wordplay. He's being played very straightforward by Mel Blanc, but I think one thing that really adds to the detail of him is the fact that he has these bags. Like, you get the impression that he means business by this.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, I just got to shout out Daffy's wardrobe as Duck Dodgers here. He doesn't have the red cape for long, but whenever it's on, it is striking. I wish more art and more artists contributed that red cape into their Duck Dodgers designs, because I think it's very striking in a positive way.
And I just like the subtlety of the light that appears behind Duck Dodgers, when he's just dramatically announcing his name, which again, that's another radio type trope, and you're probably most famous with the Lone Ranger. So on the radio is, "Hi-oh, Silver, away." Like, they would just do their catchphrase, they would announce it all the time. And that's what the parody is here.
Oh, indubitably, sir. Because there's no one knows his way around outer space like Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century.
But that touch of color just adds to it. Along with that little minor music cue of IQ High going doot 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 as Duck Dodgers falls to the ground.
Yeah, I just love the fact that there's like little acknowledgement that he just falls like 20 feet down from him having to announce that he is Duck Dodgers at the 24th and a half century.
Yes, and he just makes it out that nothing really happened, and he just does that ridiculous looking pose off screen, which I thought was hilarious. Just that one particular face, I don't know, it just kills me. As per the animated breakdown, all of these introductory scenes involving Duck Dodgers, Dr. IQ High, and so on are all done by Lord Vaughn.
I'm certain that the face originates from a Chuck Jones pose. I'm certain of that at least, but I'm looking again at IQ High, and I mentioned the Halloween costume again. He has like this tin pan on with a light bulb attached to it, but you begin to really see like the immense stylization efforts that are going on at this period, because we only see it for a little bit, and we're of course only really seeing him from like just a few angles, so they're working it to only work in those angles, especially since he has that big nose, that very wide face from the sides. We're really getting into Jones going all out with design.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I've just noticed now, as I got the short in front of me, that whole leap when Daffy says Duck Dodgers for the first time in the dramatic faction, that's like 4 frames. He goes from a crouch, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and bang, he ends up in the air. Chuck, by this point, is using all that he learned over the years in regards to timing, all the way from the Dover Boys when he was doing the whole limited animation thing, and here he's using it to great effect, because you don't need too many drawings to do that leap in such a quick and dramatic fashion. It's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a pro at this point, and he's just showing off, really. But it's to our benefit. I mean, the comedy works so well, the animation is lush and like vibrant, and the characters are larger than life. Every single one of them has a role to play, and it is such a fun role. No wonder this series translated so well to a TV series of its own.
And of course, I wish teleporter machines were around. That would certainly make things so much more convenient. I mean, if I can't work from home, at least give me a teleportation machine, yeah? So I'm not stuck in traffic. But anyway, one can dream. But I'm sure you agree with me on this, but I think probably the most underrated aspect of this short is the special effects animation. So if you look at when the rocket ship is on screen, you see the colorful electricity in the background. It's like the cherry on top. It just adds to it. It's just fantastic. But I think that's probably the most underrated aspect.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot of special effects. Like Daffy's backdrop is a special effect when he announces himself. The stars sparkling all over the titles. When he's driving the ship towards the beginning, there's smoke. Yeah, this is really all out when it goes to the design of this cartoon.
The short has some really creative effects animation. I'm pretty sure is by Harry Love. And beyond that, they really work with the scope and scale of the production details and sets and environments. Even though the Warner Brothers cartoons were not made on the highest budgets, at least in the Chuck Jones cartoons, especially ones made around this time, you usually can't tell.
Ken Harris is the animator on this, and it just has his unique take on animation in every aspect, but especially the actions. You have Marvin coming down in his little footsteps as they quickly jump over each other and he's walking. You have the TV flicker when Marvin comes on the visualized radio that Duck Dodgers has, and a gun pops out of the TV and shoots him. You have the planets. You have the obvious, like the spaceship zooming through the planets. It was a match made in heaven to have Ken Harris animate the ship movements.
This was a very special one. And they may not even have noticed that when they first created this cartoon. This may have just been another cartoon, but again, the atmosphere just adds so much to it beyond the fact that it's very funny.
Exactly. When making these shorts, it's just a job to them. And that's not to say they didn't have any passion or anything, but for a lot of them working, it was a job. They went in and they didn't know what would succeed, what wouldn't, but thankfully this one worked.
Yeah, this wasn't the case pretty much for Chuck and Maltese of this period, because again, as I've been saying, this is their peak in terms of their collaboration. They realized that they worked together so well. They didn't really know each other that much outside of their work, but they knew that Maltese had a writing style that Jones really liked, and Jones really wanted to work with a lot of Maltese's ideas. Most of them, not all of them, but this was certainly one that bred genius. And there were some times where they recognized when a good idea really was that good, like Duck 'em Up, they recognized very quickly was an exceptional cartoon. This one, I think it may have taken some time because they didn't revisit this outside of Marvin the Martian against Bugs, and they didn't even do that much in the first place. I guess they could have overdone it if they had done more than just one a year, but I think the fact that this holds test time because we're more interested in space fiction than ever, like science fiction. Star Wars is still very relevant, Star Trek. We still have space operas, and we still have parodies of them, like Muppet Show did Pigs in Space, of course, and Duck Dodgers has, of course, been one of the most relevant, even getting its own TV show. So we're just seeing just how great that a collaboration could get, so meaningful, especially when you have the right theme.
Totally agree. From researching about the Jones and Maltese relationship, from what's been said about it is that Chuck would go one direction and Maltese would go the other, and then the two would sort of meet in the middle where Maltese made sure that Jones didn't get too sentimental or too sappy, and Jones made sure that Maltese didn't go too far the other way, with over-the-top slapstick and such. It truly was a Lennon-McCartney sort of team-up.
Yeah, a match made in heaven.
Exactly. Or if we're looking at this time period, Harry Warren and Al Dubin, the songwriters, they had a similar thing too. Because when you watch the Jones shorts without Maltese after Maltese leaves for Hanna-Barbera, something does get a little bit lost. Sure. That's not to say everything he did was lousy or anything, but then you got Mad as a Mars Hair, which was definitely lacking Maltese's touch. So, it's just one of those things, I guess.
They were the Abbott and Costello of cartoons.
Yes. And we get a nice little minor Looney Tunes gag where where Daffy puts the rocket in reverse.
Had the silly thing in reverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
This whole initial scene involving the rocket, as per the animated breakdown, it starts off with Lloyd Vaughn doing Space Cadet Porky inside the rocket. It then goes to Ken Harris for the make way for Duck Dodgers bit. Daffy pulling the controls is done by Lloyd Vaughn. And then I had the silly thing in reverse, that's done by Ken Harris. But once he corrects his mistake, the rocket goes so fast and he's out in space. And we see our eager young space cadet. And I just love Porky's design here. It's just so childlike. It's really cute. I like that.
Another nice Halloween costume.
Exactly.
I just like the fact that he's just in the ship, like, he's just there ready.
Yeah, well, he's an eager young space cadet, so of course he's always ready and eager, of course.
He's so fascinating as a character because he is already like one step ahead of Duck Dodgers in every way. It's very reminiscent of the Sherlock Holmes short by Chuck Jones, where Porky Pig is always one step ahead of Sherlock, but here it just adds to this tapestry of comedy.
I just love the series of Chuck Jones shorts where I see Daffy as just a very average, ordinary actor who's so full of himself in these shorts, right? So he's playing a role, he's overplaying it, but Porky Pig is the true star.
Yeah, Porky Pig is the true hero.
I think Jones paired them up really well. As much as I love what McKimson did when he paired Porky and Daffy, that's like its own thing. Here, I just like how Jones always cast them as sets of characters, whether it's this, Drip Along Daffy. Would you say this is your favorite Porky and Daffy team up?
No, Deduce You Say is my favorite.
Right. Well, definitely up there. I can't wait to cover that one.
But yeah, this is just as iconic, if not more so.
So, the map scene, which kills me every single time. Even as a kid, I'm watching this going, why are you going all over the place? But it actually reminds me of some movies where the plan that the hero usually formulates is so convoluted where you're going, why don't you just do A, B, and C? Why are you going A to F to H to G? Like, it's clearly a parody of that. And I'm just looking at this map going, wait a minute. Why don't you just go straight up?
3,600 turbo miles due up. Then west in an astro arc deviation to here. Then, following the Great Circle, 7 radial loops south by down east. By Astrobo to here, here, and here. Then by Space Navigo Compass to here, and then to here, and here. By 13-point stratocumulus bearing 4 million light years, and thus to our destination.
One of my favorite scenes.
Daffy goes like, oh wait, what if, and copies the same as Porky but taking himself the credit, which I also find it hilarious.
He does this entire elaborate diagram and he explains going from here to there and there. And then he asks Porky if he understands it. He says yes. And then he's like, well, I wish you'd explain it to me then.
Well, I wish you'd explain it to me sometime, Buster.
I love that because it's funny by itself, but it also makes me think of another 50s period sci-fi flick that everyone should absolutely see. It's about on the same level as Buddy's Beer Cats, The Giant Claw, where they show the diagram and instead of drawing like a straight line for the way the creature's moving, no, it's moving around in a spiral because that makes way more sense than a straight line.
I just love when Daffy's shaking his head, asking Porky the eager young space cadet to explain his map, because I just love all those frames of him shaking. They're so funny. But I just gotta love how overly complicated the map is as well. It really is as complicated as you would think, because if you try to actually draw that, it is very difficult to keep up with what he's doing. You could just tell it was utter nonsense.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And Ben Washam animates this entire scene from when Duck Dodgers plots the course to Planet X, right up until Porky suggesting another route. The timing of this cartoon is very interesting, right? It's only 7 minutes long, and yet the main crux of the action only takes place in the last third. Like, there's so much build-up, then everything just about happens in the last third, and yet it doesn't feel like the timing is off at all.
Did not notice that specifically regarding the timing, because the whole thing kind of feels like its own small contained package that I'm just in it for the ride. I mean, the first joke, I think, comes from Duck Dodgers trying to explain how to get to Planet X on the chalkboard, and then Space Cadet going, oh, sure, I know how to get there. And then Duck Dodgers is like, well, I wish you would explain it to me. And it's a very verbal joke, but it is enhanced by the visuals. And that is something that the Looney Tunes and the guys over at Termite Terrace did in Aces. And this is just one of those instances that you can just sit back and just let it wash over you, and you're going to laugh, you're going to have a good time. But the fact that all of the action and all of the main crux of the story happens in the third, I think that's reminiscent of all of these Chuck Jones directed Porky and Daffy mashups with IP that already exists, whether they're novelizations or parodies of Buck Rogers. You are taking liberty with so many iconic visuals and flipping them to be funny that I think audiences back then were in on the joke as well, and they just loved living in that world. I think this thing could have gone for 30 minutes and people would have enjoyed it.
Oh, exactly. And I know as a kid, when I was watching the map gag, I was always looking at it as a kid going, why don't you just go straight up? Even as a kid, I'm going, what are you doing? Why are you going everywhere? It's such a great gag. It just shows that this works for both kids and adults alike, because as a kid, I'll notice a joke like that, but as an adult, I'll enjoy more of the over-dramatized flair of Daffy just yelling, Duck Dodgers. And of course, Porky then suggests, hey, if we follow these planets, which, again, it's just so arbitrary, it's like A, B, C, whatever, which is so ridiculous, but anyway. So he makes the suggestion, Daffy then is like, and then he takes the credits, and he goes, yeah, how do I do it? And Porky's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's very simple, sir. If we follow those planets, we can't very well miss Planet X. Oh, that's ridiculous. Of all the stupid suggestions. Hey, wait a minute. I think I've got it. I'll just bet that if we follow those planets, we'll find Planet X. Cad, how do I do it? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm noticing as we're looking through a few of these scenes that we're really going into the characters evolving, because these are more the Chuck Jones eyes that I think really defines his later look, because we're beginning to see that a little bit. But I do love the fact that Porky knows that Daffy came up with the idea because he's eager, he's young, and Daffy's egotistical as always. It's just a funny character dynamic.
100%. And we get to Planet X. Again, beautiful designs. Why is everything in X? Just because it's called Planet X, because they use the term Planet X over at NASA and places like that to just describe a planet that hasn't been officially named yet. So I guess this is a literal X, but anyway, great designs by Noble in that scene. It's fantastic.
Ridiculous and enjoyable on a design level. I mean, you have to come up with all of these. What's living on a planet called Planet X? X shapes.
Yes.
I love the ones with the holes in them for no reason.
Yeah.
For the ships to fly through, and then the whole thing gets blown up. So then it turns into an apple core.
Yes. And I like how it's purple. It just works in terms of a color scheme. It makes the green on Duck Dodgers stand out so much more. And then we see Marvin the Martian, and he's got green and red. So the purple color choice, now that would be intentional because it helps bring out the primaries on the main characters. It's fantastic.
It really is very vibrant, very in your face, but no, it's a very pointed decision.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just looking again at Planet X's scenery. We don't really see that much of it compared to the short, because, again, besides the fact that we're on Planet X, a lot of the action that's coming up, it takes place within their spaceships. But, man, it's a whole canyon. There's hills, there's mountains. We're never quite on a straight angle when we're looking at the horizon line that they're on. Everything's sort of tilted. It's beautiful, and it's purple against purple and bluish purple. It's genius color and layout. But prop to Maurice Noble, this really is his tour de force for Chuck Jones. You could see why he thought so much of him.
Exactly. And again, despite the backgrounds being amazing, it's not distracting either. You're focused on the main action. He's just got that extra eye candy in the back as well, which is great. By this point, I wanted to point out something that Linda Jones pointed out in the review for Rabbit Fire when I spoke to her with Camden Spees. Hi, Camden, if you're listening to this review.
Hi, Camden.
She points out that what her dad used to do, and if you watch this short, he does it here too, things will start slow, but then things will double up in terms of time. So right now, we're over halfway, and only now we're at Planet X. And yet, as you're watching this short, it feels longer than what it actually is, because the gags then pick up the pace, and it feels like you got a full-blown experience. So it's kind of like the time taken to do the next action is halved as the short goes along, and we get faster and faster till the very end.
Here, it's all just about straight crossing, so you're constantly seeing it go on, but then there's also these scenes that hold on for long periods, like when they're in the ship, of course, and that goes on for a minute, that it feels slower than it actually is, but that isn't to say that it feels sluggish, it's just that the short feels longer than it actually is. And of course, only now that we're on Planet X, we meet Marvin the Martian, and it's so interesting to see how spread across the pacing is, where in the usual Jones story, yeah, it starts slow and then it gets faster and faster, but here it's spread out a lot more than usual, which I think adds to it, especially because the gags are going to become very quick now.
The setup is longer, then it's half, then half, and half again to the very end where it gets faster and faster and faster. So Linda definitely pointed that out. And definitely check out the review for Rabbit Fire if you want to see me and Camden talking to her, which was fantastic. She was such a lovely lady. But you mentioned Marvin the Martian, so he lands, so Duck Dodgers says, I proclaim this planet in the name of the Earth. We see the Martian, and it's funny how his spaceship is called the Martian Maggot.
I guess it's not a big mission for them.
So I guess this is just there. We're just going to claim another planet. Even though Daffy was there first, even though he proclaimed the planet in the name of the Earth.
They used Marvin the Martian prior to him having that name in the best capacity here because he is a foil for our heroes. And he's comedic in his own right, but he's also lethal. He has weapons. He comes prepared. Thank goodness he didn't launch a slew of Martians to tackle Duck Dodgers and Space Cadet here, because I don't know if they would have survived.
No, I would say not.
Everybody resolves their conversations with guns. Like everything is answered by a gun. I love the fact that there is like very specific guns. That's one of my favorite elements of this cartoon. It's just the bit where Marvin has the ultimatum answerer. He just has that ready, you know, and it can't be the same gun to answer multiple different scenarios. No, it's just everybody's got to carry very specific guns.
In the scene where Daffy Duck is saying, I claim this planet in the name of the Earth, Devin Baxter notes that it might be Ken Harris, but to his eyes it may look like either Abe Levitot or Richard Thomas animating. So Maltese continues to shine, so we got some wordplay similar to what he was doing in the Hunting trilogy, which of course is the disintegrating pistols.
I like that Marvin immediately threatens Daffy. They don't even try to negotiate peace, or at least Daffy tries to make his claim that he was there first, and Marvin just immediately grabs out his pistol.
Yeah, and it's like, again, another allegory where I guess the other side are being a lot more aggressive and just not being peaceful. They just want to take, and that would be the US's point of view. But in any case, like, again, that could be just be looking too much into it, but it definitely comes across that way, that's for sure. So the disintegrating pistol, again, great scene. So initially where Daffy's like, aha, I have a anti-disintegrating vest. So it's like, okay, well, what ends up coming through unscathed? The vest. So it works, just not in the way Daffy expects, which cracks me up, of course, and I'm sure cracks just about anyone else. But then you think that might be it. That gag's good enough, but then Daffy brings his disintegrating pistol, but the pistol, what does it do?
When it disintegrates, it disintegrates. Well, what do you know? It's disintegrated.
It disintegrates.
I'm just watching in between that where Porky brings him back. Like, that's unusual for Chuck Jones. Usually there'd be a fade out and then we'd see Daffy back to normal without any exclamation. It adds a bit of character, but also it brings to, again, that pacing where we don't have a fade that suggests time has passed. We're still just going along, which adds to really the nature. And he, of course, immediately blames Porky, who's eager as always, and of course, we're back to disintegrating pistol gags.
Exactly.
I'm looking at the little scopes on their disintegrating pistols. They almost look like bubble blowers. They're really trying to make these look like toys.
Yeah, and that would be a play on so many of the sci-fi films, which, let's be honest, a lot of the weaponry used by aliens and such looked like toys. Sci-fi, for the most part, and during that period, was like considered B-grade to Z-grade material, just something to fill, I guess, a quota with other more quote-unquote better films. There are some great sci-fi films at the time, but for the most part, they were just forgettable schlock.
This is held up better than more than half of all sci-fi films, I would say.
I would say about 90% of them, if we're being completely honest. There's only a few that might stand out due to, I don't know, stop motion by Ray Harryhausen or something like that. And by the way, in case any of you were wondering about that quote, you may fire when ready, Grizzly. That's a play on you may fire when ready, Gridley. And that was from the Battle of Manila Bay in 1889, where Commodore George Dewey issues that command. You know, you may fire when ready, Gridley. And they've used that so many times in Looney Tunes. So people might think, hey, that comes from Looney Tunes, when really No, it comes from that quote. So we get probably the most Looney Tune of all gags in this short, when Marvin's chasing after Daffy, Daffy hides, and Porky Pig just comes out with a stick of dynamite, and it even has a bow on it, which I thought was a nice little touch. You know, happy birthday. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Just a delivery, that boom.
Happy birthday, you thing from another world, you.
Oh, thank you.
And also one of the best uses of birthdays in a cartoon that has been used in GIFs ever since. Within Happy Birthday, you thing from another world, you, and then Porky giving Marvin the Martian a cake and it explodes.
You think from another planet, you. Yeah, I just love Porky's eagerness. The fact that it just happens, there's not a lot of time to process it. Again, very fast-paced, and now we're getting into them in their duel, which, I mean, that could have taken up the entire cartoon, but I think it very smartly, Jones and Maltese did not do that and dedicated to making a lot of things happen, which, as we've been saying, really adds to this cartoon, because usually the cartoons focus on just one thing happening, not a lot of story. This really is a story.
This entire scene, from when the Martian claims the planet, all the way up until Porky handing the Martian a birthday present, that's all done by Ken Harris. This is also another case where you could say it's a Cold War allegory, where you got the ultimatum dispatcher. This is such a pitch-perfect gag. So you got the dispatcher, which you see the bullet, and it just says a message. So Martian's not happy, and it's got the ultimatum answerer. Yes, and it's actual literal bullet. Boom. Daffy shoots another bullet, and it just says, ouch, which is a perfect topper for that scene. Absolutely hilarious.
I love the fact that it was this back and forth of Duck Dodgers being civil and giving him a note of surrender. The buildup of their back and forth, even whenever they're not talking directly to each other, it is through the classic war memes of going to send a letter and then you're going to respond, but the response is an explosion. I just love how comedic that is, and it really works on every level.
And the topper, of course, is ouch.
Yes. He takes the time to write ouch.
It's so quick-paced. It's really funny, though. And it's the only time there's a real fade. There's a crossfade to go to Daffy, who's recovered, and he's going back to check up on him.
Yeah.
And we get another gun blast just from the TV monitor, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. Daffy, of course, is then adjusting his TV, and all of a sudden, we see Marvin there, and he just shoots right through the TV. It's just such a bizarre gag, which again points out how much faster these gags are getting now by this point. It's just a quick little gag. Bang. And then that's it.
Yeah, it breaks all the rules.
See, Acme has been around for now a few centuries by this point, which is interesting, by the way, the fact that it's Acme.
Too bad no one ever sued them.
I'm guessing Cody's lawsuit didn't quite work out. All hell breaks loose, like, nah, you forced me to use force, and he ends up using the ultimate destruction weapon. He sets that up to the other spaceship, Marvin does the same, and that's it.
Planet X is no more.
Exactly. And all the special effects in that scene, absolutely incredible. And even the designs of the weapons that caused all that destruction is amazing as well. It ends with Daffy presumably killing Marvin by kicking him off what's left of the planet, and Porky's like, big deal.
He's finally had enough of Daffy. He's no longer the eager young space cadet. He's just looking to survive at this point. Although Daffy is still believing he is on top. The whole planet is destroyed. There's no more shaving cream atoms. Too bad for me. But we're not in the 24th and a half century. We still have shaving cream atoms.
Thank goodness for that. Thank goodness for that. As for the last bits in regards to who animated what, Devon notes that the ultimatum dispatcher sequence might have been done by the other two uncredited animators, as there's very little animation in it. He's not sure who does the sequence of Duck Dodgers in the Super Video Detecto set, or Dodgers and the Martian with their secret weapons, though he thinks that Ben Washam may have done the bit with Daffy cackling with fiendish glee as he pulls the lever in the last bit. But what he does know is that the closing scenes of Dodger standing on the small chunk of rock, that's done by Ken Harris. So I want to once again thank Devon Baxter for taking time out of his very busy schedule to give me this extra bit of information to make this review a lot more well-rounded. So thank you, Devon.
I really love the sound design. The music track is usually playing very quietly, which adds to the atmosphere of space where there's not a lot of noise, and anything that shouts you would think would echo. I actually forget if that would happen if you were to talk just in space, but I don't think you would actually hear anything. But the sound design is just brilliant on this one, between the sound effects, the music, and just the sound mixing, because again, it plays very quietly for the most part, which again adds to the atmosphere. It's just exceptional how great the space atmosphere worked for them.
And now then, eager young space cadet, here is the course we shall pursue to find Planet X.
Just works out so well. Everything works in conjunction with each other, ranging from Mel Blanc's wonderful vocal performances.
Oh, indubitably, sir.
To Chuck Jones's directing, the layouts by Maurice Noble, background paintings by Phil DeGard, the animators, the special effect animators, Carl Starling's score, you name it. Everyone was at their peak of perfection in this one.
Again, this is one where there's a lot of story. A lot of them are just gag fest, like when we did the Ant cartoon with Elmer Fudd. That's just a setup with gags, but here, there really is a story. And I think that makes it a lot more exceptional, the fact that there is a lot going on. It's unusual for a Warner cartoon to be more than a very good setup with exceptional gags, but here it's exceptional setup, exceptional gags. It just culminated so well with this and Duck 'Em Up, which again also has an exceptional story with exceptional gags because it's so abstract.
Yes, exactly. So rating, come on. What I'm going to rate this one other than a 10 out of 10? It's a masterpiece. I mean, it's no Buddy's Bearcats. No, kidding. I'm kidding. It's such an amazing short. It's overplayed, quote unquote, for a reason. It's just pitch perfect from start to finish, and there's really not much else I can say about it, aside from the fact that I'm going to go play that Nintendo 64 game and see if it's any good.
I do not believe in the perfect film because we can't tell. People are always making films, and I only believe you get something perfect once, but damn, this must come close to whatever it is and what is intended in the human path. But yeah, this is a 9.5 for me just because it really is that good. It's everything culminating together to make something very, very close to perfect.
12 out of 10. This is a masterpiece on a whole new level. And obviously it inspired works that are still being celebrated today. So even its lineage is strong. But yeah, this is a short that you can go back and watch and rewatch again, and share with friends and family and kids. And this is just one of those all-timer cartoons that never gets old, and it never will.
This cartoon, its timing, its jokes, its vocal deliveries by Mel Blanc, it's all just magnificent. And this is absolutely one of the crowning achievements of animation in the 20th century, especially if you're comparing it to something like There Ought to Be a Law.
I give the cartoon a 9 out of 10. It is very close to being a 10. I'm kidding. I give the cartoon a 10 out of 10. It may not be perfect in every sense of the word, but its cultural impact and legacy has stood strong for a reason. Sci-fi fans and Looney Tunes fans, your adventure awaits. Just do not watch the sequel. It is a piece of...
It's definitely a 10 out of 10. One of Jones' greatest cartoons. And that's all that I have to say about this cartoon, and I'll see you all later in another review. Take care and see you later.
Well, Anthony, thank you for having me on. If you're interested in following the podcast, you can check us out over at This Means Pod or This Means Podcast if you're on Instagram or Facebook. And that is being updated.
In any case, that will do it for this review. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, take care.
So long from Duck Dodgers in the 24.5th century.
Duck Dodgers in the 24.5th century. Big deal.
And now, this planet is hereby claimed for the Earth in the name of Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century. Big deal.